I'm DeLeo with DeLeo Training, and I'm back this week with our next episode, and we're going to be covering the Kettlebell Deadlift. Now, if you haven't patterned the hip hinge, you're going to want to go back and watch last week's episode and look at that video and make sure you're working on your hip hinge pattern and incorporating the biomechanical breathing match. So today we're going to be covering the two-arm single kettlebell deadlift and then a progression into the double kettlebell deadlift. Now, this is a fantastic exercise, and it's one of my favorites. As Master SFG Phil Scarito likes to say, he considers the deadlift the godfather of all lifts. I particularly like to use this exercise with rowers because I feel it helps them during the dry phase of the stroke. So often athletes are coached to pull harder, but the truth of the matter is the rowing stroke is actually a pushing movement. And this really helps to reinforce pushing from catch to finish and allowing the athlete to make sure they're really working on the second half of the drive sequence and extending all the way through the hips. So we're going to go over those two progressions. You'll see this week I'm barefoot. Last week I was in Converse Chuck Taylors. So if you have the opportunity to train barefoot in your gym, highly recommend to do so. There's 500 nerve cells in 1 square centimeter of skin. So it's an incredible amount of feedback that you can get from your environment. And when we wear shoes, it tends to cut a lot of that feedback off from our feet to our brain. So it helps to accentuate and increase or shorten the learning curve for athletes. So we're going to start with the two-arm single kettlebell deadlift. So I'm going to shoot from both angles. We'll go from the side and then also from the front and then do the progression. So I'm going to have the kettlebell behind my ankles. That way it's directly over my center of mass. Okay, feet are going to be approximately shoulder width apart, slightly turned out. And I'm going to hinge back. I'm going to grab the bell and I'm going to think about breaking the bell in half. Okay? A good drill to make sure that you're keeping the shoulders packed is to just take your arm and place it under your armpit and think about squeezing your armpit down to your hip, and you'll feel that lat engage. We want to have that connection when our hands are on the kettlebell. That's going to allow us to connect our shoulder and lats to our hips and our glutes. So we're going to get down, take a sniff of air, and then as I return back to the ground, I'm going to feed the kettlebell back behind my ankles, keeping my elbows glued to the ribs. Good. So I'll do it from the front as well. Good. So that's the first part, pattern that. And then we're going to move to the progression. We're going to be doing a 2 kettlebell deadlift or double kettlebell deadlift. So I'll shoot this from the side again. So nothing changes, same position. We just got 2 kettlebells, a little bit more weight. This is really going to help cement the hip hinge pattern and really allow the athlete to push or drive through the floor. All right, so this is a great way to transfer that to think about pushing off the footboard in the rowing stroke. Okay, and we'll turn. Okay. Good. So there you have it. 2 progressions for the kettlebell deadlift. Make sure you take your time, really pattern and groove the hip hinge pattern before you progress and load it with weight. And then really focus on the 2-arm single kettlebell deadlift first, and then progress to the double kettlebell deadlift. We'll be back next week. We'll be covering the 2-arm kettlebell swing. You'll be getting that right before Thanksgiving. Thanks for watching. Leave your comments below, and we'll see you next week.